Welcome to today's episode of the Empire Builders MasterCast. I'm Lucas Marino, author and person who helps other authors convert their books to courses. Honoree, how are you doing today?
I'm super good. I'm Honoree Quarter, also an author, and I help aspiring authors become authors and figure out the best ways to market and monetize their books.
Sure, certainly does.
Yeah, and so today we've got a special guest. We are going to talk about someone very special to us, Kent Sanders, and his book 18 Words to Live By in our series Why I Wrote This, which is a nod to one of my favorite podcasts, How I Built This by Guy Raz. But before we get to Kent, Lucas, what's going on? What's new and exciting in your world?
Oh my gosh. You and I have been
We're on fire.
Playing in all these little playgrounds, and
I know
it's so much fun. I've been researching, so I haven't talked about it on the live stream, but I have been launching an online bookstore, and now I'm looking at the opportunity for physical locations to go along with that, and timing everything and all this stuff. So if you haven't opened a brick and mortar business before, it's like a tremendous amount of like time invested in lease discussions and location and physical inventory stock and all the stuff that comes along with opening a physical business, which is very much different than what all my online business and digital based businesses are currently doing. So that's what I've been face down in when I'm not reading and writing.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I want to say hello to Justin. Hi, Justin.
Oh, I don't have the chat up. Hey, Justin.
My brother is tuning in on YouTube. So happy to see you.
Hello.
And he's had some good news recently in his life. So we're excited.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're excited for him.
Good job, dude.
And so what I have been working on, and we're going to talk about it later with Kent too, but I have been struggling for a long time about where to send people who really wanted help with publishing their books, the technical parts of getting their books up on retail platforms, making sure that they're optimized, making sure that everything is in order. The book description looks right and the price is right, and that the platforms are set up correctly and not under their name, not going into their personal account, just the things that you don't know that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And I am, of course, frustrated with some of the options that are out there because they're either with a very high barrier to entry or the barrier to entry is very low. And I don't even have my microphone on. I'm waiting for Justin to be like, what's happening? Oh my gosh. Hello, I'm a professional.
You still sound pretty decent considering.
Did I sound okay? I see, look, yeah. Mike, did you see? He was like, what are you doing? You can't
quality control.
Nonsense. You cannot edit this nonsense if you don't get your act together. Okay, I have my act together finally.
Justin is our Q&A department.
I also just didn't do it in the last hour when we were chatting. So I forgot all about it. So can you hear me?
I can, but I don't think you're on that microphone.
You don't think so?
Change your audio input on the restream.
No, it said your mic is now.
Okay.
It said your mic is now the volt, whatever this is. Yeah, it says I'm good. Am I not good?
Tap the mic. Nope.
Now. What about now?
There you go.
This is it? Okay.
Yep.
That's
on.
Weird because it said default volt 276 and then it says volt 276. So I guess I had to change it up. Okay. Noted. I learned something new already today. 10:05. All right. So nevertheless, there are some, there are basically three paths for someone who wants to become an author. They go traditional, they go indie, self-publishing, or they go through a hybrid publisher. And and I know this is going to really irritate some people, but the more I dug into most of the hybrid publishing models, the less I like them. The low quality control, they want you to pay and they want to take a piece of the action. And I just do not abide by that choice most of the time, especially considering the quality.
Right.
So I've been really kind of trying to figure out where I could send people. And I've always had my antenna up. And finally, the opportunity came about for me to do it myself. So I'm working with MJ James, who a lot of people know and love, and I've gotten to work with over the last several months on different projects. And she's just delightful. And so I'm mentoring her and teaching her the finer points of making sure that books are published professionally. And so if anyone is interested in learning more about it, we have 3 packages: the basic, the advanced, and the elite author. And you can go to honoreecorder.com/author and check out the different packages and what comes with the packages. And it's like having a seasoned expert professional walk alongside you and help you to publish your book. So that's what I'm really excited about, because I just spent way too much time learning how to build a WordPress page, because Holly, so this is the part where summer and vacations can be really annoying, because the people that I work with like to take breaks. So Holly, who did the original web page for me, I went in there and I edited it, but apparently I screwed up some of the code. So on Safari, it looked terrible. And so then I duplicated the page thinking that that might solve the problem. No. And so in hour 4, I decided, well, I'm just going to build the page myself. So there's a lot of swearing. There were some workout words that were happening. But right after 8:00 last night, the page was up and functional and ready to go. And so MJ and I have hung out the shingle of author publishing services, and we are open for business.
Excellent.
Yes.
And as the unofficial spokesman for your brand for about 30 seconds, I would
Thank
like
you.
to, in my independent third-party opinion, is I have been a participant in these types of projects, and you are phenomenal. Needless to say, you don't need my
Thank you.
endorsement.
Thank you.
But MJ, for those that don't know, MJ is an absolute awesome human.
1,000,000%.
We've got
Yeah, she's got all the love. She's got all the love. Can you post that link up there in the
I
chat
absolutely
for me?
will.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, so MJ and I connected through our guest today, Kent Sanders, because we were kind of discussing the lack of, what we felt were, just great choices for people, right? We don't want to send someone to an okay place. We have really high standards. And so we were just kind of chatting, and I wouldn't use the word complaining, although I think that's probably the exact right word, that I really wanted a place I could send people. And I wish I had someone that I could rely on for not only my clients, but also for the people that we just wanted to serve, fiction or nonfiction, that we just want to make sure they're getting their ducks in a row. Because the number of people I see that publish their books and it's copyright Lucas Marino. Right. And it's like, if you don't know what you don't know, you can easily make a mistake that could be so effortlessly avoided if you just had some guidance. So, well, you're welcome, MJ. We just think the absolute world of you. One of the things that I've always said when I was business and executive coaching, someone would say, when I want to hire someone, what's the first thing I want to look for? And I say, hire for attitude and train for skill. And MJ embodies attitude. Always like showing up, so grateful, such a positive attitude. A PMA is one of my favorite things. Do you know what PMA is, Lucas?
I'm not going to assume what a PMA is according to my brain. It might not be the right thing. I come from a world of acronyms that some of them are more appropriate than others.
Oh, okay. So positive mental attitude.
Not it, but go ahead. That sounds great.
I want to know what you had in mind, but
Nope.
later offline. All right. Well, I do want to know what it is, but not right now.
The first two words are pain in my...
Oh, well, that's PETA. There's another acronym for that. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I am a big fan of people who always see a solution in every problem instead of a problem in every solution. And they're, if they're going to argue, they're arguing for the possibilities, not their limitations. And MJ is just that person. And so it's just been really fun. We've been working together for, I don't know, like 4 months or something, 3 or 4 months. And it's just been a breeze. She's an absolute light. And so obviously, this is the MJ Fan Club Hour hosted by Honoree and Lucas.
Well, I think one of the cool things about something like this is, and I've thought about this quite a bit, especially on the fiction side, because, you know, when I called Honoree and said, "Hey, I'm going to do it. I'm going to publish my first fiction." This was last year. And she's like, "Sweet." My very next question was, who should I talk to? Because you're
Yeah.
looking for someone you can trust, right? Like
Yeah.
you just walk out into the world to find resources. It gets
Yep.
really stressful. Because you're
Yeah.
not sure who you're trusting
That's right.
this, you know, especially
That's
like
right.
you're, you know,
Right.
especially
And just
something
ask
is,
me about trusting the wrong person, how that ends up.
yeah, I mean, it can be really
It's
difficult,
not
right?
good.
So the cool thing about this is, you know, if you know us, then this is, you know, obviously working with someone that's trustworthy and with a team that is got your best
Yeah.
interests in mind.
Yeah.
And that's the only type of people we work with. So
That's right. That's right. I didn't mention that today's podcast is sponsored by Publishing PhD.
boom, boom, boom.
Bum, 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 but I'm supposed to, where you will learn how to write, publish, and start to market and monetize your book. So there you go. There's the shameless plug. Right after the shameless plug for author marketing services, honoreecorder.com/author. And I'm just super excited about it. We've already had a few people, right, that we've worked with, and they are just like, I don't even know what all these things mean. Thank you so much. It's been so great. So it's going to be really fun. Before we get to our guest, I want to know what you've been reading, because you always read. It's amazing to me how much you get done, but you're always reading. Does that say Darkness and Dawn?
It does. This is a friend of mine. She's amazing, by the way. Her name is Terry Hooker. And this was her first fiction. And it's kind of gothic, New Orleans, like back in the 1700s.
Sweet.
Apparently there was a trade market where women would be sold into marriage in New Orleans. And
yeah, spooky.
yeah, so this is, and obviously not a desirable situation. So this story is about
Depends on the husband.
Yeah, that's true.
You could have sold me into marriage to Byron. I would have been all right with that. Have a little pocket money and have a great husband.
Byron's like, it probably would have been cheaper.
Wow.
To do
it. All right.
Right now he's either laughing or he's going, shh.
Well, he came to bed at 4:30. And I got up at 4:30. And when I opened my eyes, I was like, did you just come to bed? And he's like, yep. And he's up right now getting ready to go to a business lunch. So
he's the man.
I'm pretty sure he's not laughing. That's all I've got to say. I'm pretty sure he's not laughing, because I know he was working before I was done working and not throwing my computer out the window, because I have some moments of self-preservation. Right?
Yes.
We needed it for today. All right. Is that the only thing? Darkness and Dawn?
I'm actually reading also a collection from, or let me give you the title first. It's Shrouded.
Okay.
Shrouded Horror, sorry. Tales of the Uncanny from K.C. Griffin.
Is it Casey?
KC as in two letters.
Okay, KC Griffith.
KC Griffin, Grifant.
Griffin.
And Shrouded Horror comes out within, I think, 2 weeks. I might be wrong on that.
Oh, you got a pre copy. Did you get it on Kindle? Is that why you're not holding it up?
Yes, I have the EPUB file on my Kindle.
And
it was sent to me directly by KC, because we're going to have her on the Suspense is Killing Me in a week. So next Friday, I'm going to do the recording with her. So I think her book goes live in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
I was just about to say, do you only read, because you read an awful lot of physical books. And so I was wondering, you probably read also Kindle?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I've got tons of ebooks.
Oh my gosh. Every day I say I'm not going to buy another book. And then I had one delivered yesterday. Whoops.
Yay. So yeah, I'm really big into the physical books, but I'm also really big into ebooks, because physical books are obviously a little bit of a different price point, and also all the space, right? So like when you are prolifically reading, it can be hard to manage that. I am still trying to break the habit of like, I'm going to be moving, right? Like I was in the military for all those years. It was like, you could be moving every 2 to 4 years.
Now you're never moving again, right?
That's right. So
until you move to the Middle Tennessee area.
And if that happens, I'll have enough money to just afford to bring all the books. So,
Right. Oh, look, it's John Stongi. Hey, John Stongi.
Oh my gosh, I'm a little upset. I took getting Kent Sanders here to get John Stongi
Right.
here.
Right. I know. We're not going to take that personal. We're not going to take that personal. I didn't even connect the dots, but yeah. Well, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
However he gets here.
He's here.
He's here, right?
I'm just giving you a hard time, John.
I'm not giving you a hard time, John.
For those that don't know John Stongi, he's been on the show before.
Yeah.
And John is an awesome platform launcher, teaches other people how to launch platforms. And he is
platformlaunchers.com.
Naturally born podcast voice.
Yes. And probably one of the top 10 humans I've ever met in my life. Yeah. I mean, just a really good human. Yeah.
In a good category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prolific writer, podcaster, college professor.
Super nice.
Do you say pastor, minister, or preacher? I'm curious, inquiring minds, or is there one I'm missing? I'm not right. Yep. Anyway, I'm so glad you're here. John. So real quick, we got to get to the show with Kent. So real quick, I just want to say that I got this book.
Oh, another thing to talk to Kent about.
And
Ryan Holiday fan.
There are 4 of them, to be 4 of them, and this is the 3rd. So Courage is Calling, Discipline is Destiny, and so this must be Wisdom, maybe? Justice. No, this is Justice. Okay. So Courage, Temperance, and Justice are the three of the 4 words. Virtues.
I almost spit my tea out all over my keyboard.
Sorry. Apparently I need to drink more coffee. So there's the Stoic Virtues series. And so Courage is Calling was the courage virtue. Discipline is Destiny is the temperance. And so Justice is the 3rd one, and it's the right thing right now. Good Values, Good Character, Good Deeds by Ryan Holiday. And so if any of you were wanting something from me this weekend, or you were expecting, every closet, drawer, or space to be clean for the upcoming EBM in person, and it's not done, just send a note to Ryan Holiday and tell him that he should not be coming out with his book at the same time of year. Also, I think he's late. I think he at one point had written how this book was due earlier and he didn't quite get it finished. I'm sure it was worth the wait. He has really good books. I read the Daily Stoic. Kent, I'm going to show this again, and then we got to bring Kent in. So Kent got me this beautiful leather-bound version of the Daily Stoic, which I read every day, all year. It's on my desk. It's always on my desk, and it's one of the first things I do in the morning is figure out how I'm going to be tested that day, and try to maintain my anti-fragile equilibrium. But that's it. So now we're up to date. We should probably
bring our
special guest in. And so I don't really have a bio for Kent. I'm just going to kind of riff a little bit while you're bringing him in. So Kent Sanders is a prolific author, a former pastor and college professor turned full-time author and ghostwriter. He's also the host, founder, and leader of The Profitable Writer. So he had the Daily Writer for a long time. And those episodes and that platform still exists with lots of resources, but he decided to rebrand and become The Profitable Writer. And he has a membership community and people that are in that membership community. And I get to work very closely with Kent because we've done 4. I'm probably forgetting some, but we've done at least 4 books together. We're working on a couple of more right now, many more in the future. He's just, again, like MJ, just someone I just really enjoy working with and getting to know. It's no drama. It's always just what needs to be done. When do we need to do it? Let's get it done. Let's make it the best possible thing ever. And so in advance of Father's Day, which is, yes, this Sunday for anyone who it has snuck up on, which I think is everyone, I asked Kent to join us for the Why I Wrote This series and talk about 18 Words to Live By. Yeah, so let's have Kent.
Welcome.
Kent Sanders comes out of the clouds.
I feel like I'm coming out of the green room onto like Jimmy Kimmel's
You are.
stage or something.
You are. It's just like Jimmy Kimmel, only without the millions of viewers.
Except you guys aren't quite as mean as Jimmy
Right.
Kimmel.
We don't have a live band. You're not dancing. None of this.
We don't
is
have a
happening.
live band. We don't yet have millions of followers or sponsor dollars, but the day is young.
Well, I grew up watching Johnny Carson. Was kind of obsessed with Johnny Carson. I was a kid. I loved him. Him and my grandfather were the exact same age. And so I kind of pictured Doc Severinsen, in his wild jumper. Now I'm really dating myself.
Well,
those were the days of late night talk show.
Those were the days when you could actually watch television with your whole family.
Yeah, those are long gone.
Yeah.
My kids don't even want to see a TV.
Yeah. They're like, Jimmy Fallon, he's so old. And I'm like, wait.
They're like, oh, I know him from YouTube.
Yeah, from YouTube.
I see him on shorts all the time.
I see him on shorts. Oh my
I
gosh.
see him on
So how
social
are
media.
you? How are
I'm
you,
good.
Kent?
I'm good. Thanks for the very kind introduction. That was
You're
really
welcome.
nice.
You're welcome. I'm sure Lucas has some nice things to say too.
Yeah, I was actually going to make up an entire bio just of untrue things to say about Kent, like, avid skydiver, just come up with randomness and then make
Paratrooper.
Yeah, it needs to come in
the Middle East.
Oh, come on, make it interesting. Repeat felon.
Yeah. Circumnavigated the globe 3 times in a glider.
Yes,
Yeah.
accompanying Magellan on his feet. He's really old.
Yeah. Super old. So before we get into 18 Words to Live By, you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and give us a little bit of your backstory because it's really interesting.
Sure. So I started out my career as a music pastor. So earlier you mentioned it. So a couple of quick things as a side note. So hello to John, if you're still watching. And so that made me think of what you said earlier about, do you call them a preacher, pastor, minister? And it's interesting because the terminology has kind of shifted depending on what sort of denomination, church you're in and the specific group and all that. So when I started out way back in the 90s, I was involved in church music and I was called a music minister. That was the terminology.
Okay.
And then things kind of eventually, hey, John, good to see you. And then things kind of changed to where the terminology was you're a worship leader and now it's worship pastor. And there's, it's funny how terminology kind of changes over the decades.
I don't honestly know the difference between a preacher, a pastor, and a minister. Not that we want to do that here, but you can tell me, you can educate me offline. I do know it's not priest, right? I got a little bit of education, but that's anyway, Jen says she needs proof. So she wants you to sing for us, please.
Man, I sing so infrequently today. I think my singing voice is probably garbage.
Okay, well,
you can
next time.
I'll save that for some other time.
Yeah, just be. He can probably sing at EBM in a couple of weeks. But my brother says,
I'll bring my
brother says a preacher, a minister, and a pastor walk into a bar.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I started out as is doing church music. I intended to go to school to be a preacher. Speaking of preachers, but I discovered that I didn't really enjoy doing that, and I wasn't really particularly good at it. But I grew up in a little church in Southern Missouri, and I knew for a fact that I wanted to go into church ministry as a vocation at that time. At least that's what I felt. And went that direction. And because I grew up in a small church, we had one person who worked there, and that was our preacher, / pastor / minister. And so I just kind of followed in his footsteps. But when I got into college, I discovered, hey, there's actually this job you can do, which is doing music full time at a church. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So that's what I did for a while. And then I transitioned into basically teaching music at the college level. And I ran a music program at a small Christian college for about 10 years. And then after I did that, once I had done that for about 7 or 8 years, I started to get really bored with it, to be honest with you. And there's really no other way to put that. I was tired of kind of the the hamster wheel of running our college chapel services, which was like having 4 church services a week, essentially. You're in
Yeah.
charge of those and teaching the same classes over and over and over again every year. And so fortunately, the school where I taught allowed me to transition into a different role over a 2 or 3 year period, which I will always be really, really grateful for. So I transitioned into teaching courses related to technology and communications and some writing courses and those type of things. And then around that same time, our school's enrollment really started to decline. And I thought, man, I need a plan B here,
Mm,
or I'm going to die with the school. So I really need to sort of
right.
get my ducks in a row and figure out what I'm doing. And just after a long period of trying a lot of different things and figuring things out and stopping and starting a lot of different initiatives and trying to make some income, I finally got into ghostwriting a number of years ago and
Yeah, you
did
did.
that for a couple of years and built it up to a full-time income and transitioned into what I'm doing now. Basically, that's kind of the short story.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have a whole bunch of questions, Lucas, but please feel free to jump in there.
Yeah, no, I love Ken's story because it shows how you might set out in one direction, but you can be very flexible and you don't feel locked in. I think our generation may have been the last generation that was raised by a previous generation who had just stayed in one career path for their
Right.
entire
Right.
lifetime,
Yeah.
unless of course you get into a profession like being a medical doctor or something like that, where naturally you kind of stay in that profession due to the amount of work that comes
Right.
in the front of it, to get in and be in that type of profession. So I really love the way that you were able to pivot professionally, and you do it in a way that is natural and you're still serving people and you're doing it at such a high level. So I think it's just really inspiring to see someone move from one profession to another and not miss a beat. Although I say that, but I know as a person who's done it, the whole not missing a beat thing doesn't feel that way, but it sure looks that way because you've done such a great job with it, dude.
100%. But
Well, thank you. I'm sure from the outside, people who knew me from my college teaching career, they probably looked at that and they thought, well, that's kind of an odd job to go into. You don't hear of college professors becoming ghostwriters and going into a full-time business like that. But really, it was a series of I just call it overlapping, where you have the main thing that you're doing, then you have some kind of a side hustle or a side gig that you're doing to kind of test the waters and see if you like that. And that's really how my whole career has been. When I was doing music in the church world, I taught a couple college classes on the side. I discovered I really loved doing that and was pretty good at it. And so I went into that for a long time. When I wanted to transition out of teaching music, for the most part, I started to teach a couple classes not on the side, but I basically used what I was learning through podcasts to negotiate the courses that I was teaching. Because what a lot of professors do is they just kind of accept whatever's given to them. So I thought, well, in fact, it was Bob Berg's podcast I was listening to, and I thought, what if I actually try to negotiate some of this? What if I negotiate my class times, the classes I'm teaching? What if I can pitch ideas for new courses that are really interesting to me instead of teaching courses that I don't really like? And it worked. It worked like a charm. Also because it was a small school and I knew everybody. And if you bring coffee on a regular basis to the academic secretary, the world is your oyster, basically.
Right.
So I've just overlapped my whole career. And I think that's a good pattern for people to transition into something else. You don't have to make a hard right transition. You can try some things for a year or two, build it up, and then, just make that transition really, really smoothly. Life doesn't have to be all bumps and bruises and craziness, although sometimes those things are going to happen. I think it's inevitable.
Right.
Definitely. Never underestimate the power of coffee, chocolate, or cookies.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Couldn't
Yes,
agree more.
definitely. So, how did we get connected? Do you remember who connected us?
Kind of. I was thinking about that the other day, and the way that the way that I first heard about you, Honoree, was I was at a tribe conference. Jeff Goins put on,
Oh,
who
right.
we all know Jeff.
Mhm.
I love Jeff to death. What a awesome author and a great guy. He put on this conference called Tribe for, I think it was 5 years, and I
5
went to 2 or 3 of those. And he had a really cool feature of that conference, which is called the Book Exchange. And I don't know if that was something that was unique to him, but it was the first time I'd ever seen it. And you could basically bring your book, set a couple copies down there, and you take a book and you leave a book, basically.
Mhm.
I remember I took a copy of my book, The Artist Suitcase, and I left it there. I have no idea who actually took it, of course. But I saw a book there called Tall Order by this lady named Honoree and I thought, that's an unusual name. And that looks like a
Yeah.
book. It's a short book. It looks like it's something I could read fast, and this looks like something that would help me in my life. So picked
Wow.
up the book and read it. And then I kind of was on the fringes of your world for, I think, a few years. And then somehow we got connected, and I had you as a guest on my
That's
podcast.
right. Yeah.
This must have been 4 or 5 years ago, something
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
I remember where I was in my college office when we did that interview.
Wow.
And I remember that the interview was great, but what really struck me is that we talked for about 45 minutes offline after the interview. And that's actually how I came to take, I think it was publishing PhD after that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how I got into your, I don't know if you call what you have an ecosystem or your world, but I think
Yeah.
of it that way. And that's
Wow.
how I got to know you better. And I thought, wow,
Mm.
this is pretty cool. This is a person I
Wow.
need to get to know better and somebody I can learn a lot from. So that was kind of the
Amazing.
start of our journey, I guess.
Amazing. And so was it the first tall order or the second one?
Boy, that's a good question.
Well, is
I
it the
think
one
it was
with
the
the
second one.
was it the bigger size or was it the small, the Better Business Book size?
It was
The tall one or
the
the
6x9,
taller one?
I think.
The
6
6x9.
by 9.
So what's
think.
interesting about that is that all the time I get pushback about giving books away. I don't want to give my books away. I'm not going to get anything from it. I'm going to sell my book and get my $5. But if I hadn't, and I gave away a lot of books that
Mhm.
day. I remember at that tribe. So that would have been tribe year 4
Hmm.
because I spoke tribe year 5. So tribe
Okay,
year
I wasn't at that
4,
one.
I remember Jeff saying, come, and he gave me fatal error. He gave me a VIP ticket. So I got to go in the VIP area where the snacks were. You know me and snacks, right? But I remember him saying, like, bring books. If you want to give away books, I do this book
Yeah.
exchange. So I just brought a bag of books, and I remember putting them on my table where I was sitting, and everybody was like, you're an author? And I was like, yeah, a little bit. And then taking the books and putting them on the book exchange table and so I love you refreshing my memory about exactly how we got connected, because it was me out of, just, you don't know what happened to your book. I almost
have no
never
idea.
know what
Yeah.
happens to my books. I just give them away. And then every so often I'll hear a story like this. And I know you've told me this before, but it was not fresh in my mind. But it's so interesting. And I can now have another example. Like, give it away already. Like, give away what you want more of, because what I
Yeah.
wanted more of was great people in my life. And I gave you a copy of my book, and here you are. So really cool.
And I also think that speaks to the importance of having a book cover that's good. And I know you feel strongly about this. I feel really strongly about it too, because all things being equal, if people are looking at a bunch of random books on the table,
Mhm.
what are they going to pick up? Well, obviously the title, the subtitle, there are other factors
Yeah.
with the print
Yeah.
version of the book that do make a difference. But if it has a great title and a great cover, that's going to vastly increase the chances people are going to be interested in your book.
Yeah. So if I designed my cover in Word, we probably wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation today. So speaking of books that we've written, you wrote 18 Words to Live By.
I did.
And I would love for you to talk about why you wrote that book and for whom.
Well, I wrote it for my son. His name is Ash. He used to go by Ben. He's changed his name to Ash, which he's always kind of liked. That name is sort of unusual. And, when you have a kid who, and I think this is a fairly common, I'm a Gen Xer. And so we were actually talking about this the other day about how I said, it's interesting because like people my age, we had nicknames, but I never really knew anybody who like kind of changed their name, not legally, but changed what they go by. But it's super common with younger kids, at least more common than it was when we were all growing up. And so anyway,
Yeah.
he goes by Ash now. And the reason I wrote the book really was because back when he was probably, 15 or 16, I was thinking, what is something I could get him for his 18th birthday? So he just turned 20. So this book came out a couple of years ago. And I thought, well, I'm a writer, so maybe I should write a book for him. Now, there's the writer part of me that's thinking, oh, what a cool gift that would be he'll appreciate all the work that's involved in it. Not to mention, the expensive editing and cover design and everything that's involved in putting together a great book. Of course, kids don't really think that way. So I kind of knew from the dad angle that he would probably look at it and go, okay, that's a nice gift, set it on his shelf, and probably would never read it. Now, to his credit, he actually did read it. And I think he liked it. So, or maybe he just told me that, who knows. But I wanted to give him something that he would hopefully appreciate at the age of 18, but really appreciate when he got to be 35 or 40 or 50. Because one of my treasured possessions is a notebook that my grandmother used back in the early 70s to write poetry. And she died when I was 3 years old. And that's one of my treasured possessions because it's a physical thing that she created. She was a wonderful lady. Everybody loved her. She was really great. Awesome. I think it's where I got my interest in writing from because really neither one of my parents have been into writing. So it must have skipped a generation and somehow it embedded itself into me, I guess. But I wanted to give my son kind of something like my grandmother had. Now, she didn't pass it on to me. My dad actually gave it to me, but I wanted to give him something tangible that in a couple decades, when he's discouraged, when he's going through a rough time, when he doesn't know what to do, when he comes to a crossroad in his life, when he feels like quitting, what is something that he could have that would help guide him through those times? And so I sat down and I thought, what are the 18 values that I try to live by in my life? I don't do them perfectly. And what is something I'd like to pass on to him? So that's really the genesis of the book. And I designed it in a way where you can kind of like with an 18-year-old's attention span in mind. The chapter, it's a small book. It's physically small. The chapters are like 4 or 5 pages long. It's a very, very quick read. They're not sequential. So it's just something where you can pick up and read really fast and get something tangible out of it.
It's a wonderful book. I loved it. I read it twice. I think it's a wonderful book. It's a great gift for Father's Day.
Yeah, I think so too.
To your father. It's a great gift for a father to give to his son who's a father, right? Maybe of younger kids.
Absolutely.
It's actually not just for dads, but I love the sentiment behind you writing it. The parent in me wants to know if you took a highlighter and like highlighted certain passages and circled things and drew arrows, like you don't want to miss this. This one's really important.
I didn't, but that's a good idea. Now, well, actually, I take that back. I have mentioned to my son a couple times. I said the most important chapter in the book is number 1. That's why I put it first. And that is a chapter on responsibility, basically taking responsibility for your life. So there's no situation I can think of, and there's no problem that can't be made better by looking at it and going, how can I take responsibility for owning this, for solving the problem, for taking action, for do I need to apologize? Do I need to work harder? Do I need to stay up later or get up earlier?
Yep.
Whatever it is, if I can take greater responsibility, that probably is going to help solve whatever the problem is.
Right.
Right.
I love that.
Nice comment there, Jen. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Jen. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and this, I mean, I know you wrote it for your son, but you could give this to any of your kids or even
it's gender neutral.
Yeah. Even someone in your life that is maybe in need of some support and they don't have it. Cause I've got some people in my circle like that, that would benefit greatly from a book like that. Cause they're not going to hear it from somebody else, which is unfortunate, but that's life. So,
yeah.
Well, it would be a great wedding gift, a great graduation gift, a great birthday gift.
If only I knew somebody who has experience with different versions of books.
Yeah.
You could really help me.
Let me think about it.
If either one of you know anybody like that.
You know what? Let me send an email out to my network and see if there's someone who could help you. Yes.
Post it on social media. That's always the best.
Yeah, post on Facebook. Who knows someone who does this?
You get the best leads when you do that.
Yes, perhaps only we knew somebody. Oh, so you were a pastor, minister, and preacher-ish, and a college professor. And obviously you're a husband and a dad. And
Correct.
So you've made this transition though to writing and all that goes with writing. So your own brand of writing your own books, writing 18 Words to Live By, writing The Artist's Suitcase. and also running the Profitable Writer. The reason we get to work most closely together is because you're a ghostwriter. So I have a bunch of ghostwriter questions that
Sure.
I think are pressing questions. The number one piece of resistance that I get when I talk to a prospective client, I'll say, look, you can get 10,000 words an hour when you're interviewing with a ghostwriter because they know what to ask you.
Yes.
But somehow they're concerned that the words in the book are not their words, or that they're not really a ghostwriter, or they're not really an author if a ghostwriter wrote the book. So I would love for
Right.
you to shed some light on if there is anybody ever that's used a ghostwriter in history, and who those people would be, and the correlation between the interviews and then whose words are they on the page, and anything else you want to share. I have more questions, but maybe start with those.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I know that people who are considering using a ghostwriter, or maybe they just heard of ghostwriters, they have this concern about those aren't really my words. I didn't write those. They're not going to express my ideas or my concepts the correct way, yada, yada. The fact of the matter is, honestly, if we're just brutally honest, any book that you ever pick up, it's not really those authors' words 100%. Because unless you have written and edited that book completely 100% yourself, you're always going to have an editor involved.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have a proofreader involved. If you go with a traditional publisher, you're going to have multiple levels of editing involved from multiple editors. If you have a co-author, that person's going to be involved. So
Yeah.
this notion that the finished book represents totally something that's 100% from you as an individual is really false. And, we all know, because we're all kind of in the book world, that editors can have a radical impact on the quality of a book. So anytime that you see, in
Yep.
fact, I will not reveal who the author of this was for obvious reasons, but good friend of mine who's an editor, one time he showed me he said, hey, you might be interested in this. So he showed me what he had been sent from, this is a very well-known author. And then he showed me the edited version. Basically it was the Word document with his edits. And I was shocked at
how much had been
how much it
rewritten.
had improved and how much was different
Yeah.
because this editor had done a pass on it. But that's good. I think that's a really, really good thing. So like this idea that it's not really your words, I don't think it should just be your words, because if it's just you creating something, that means you're going to limit the excellence of it because it doesn't have an editor involved, or maybe a collaborator or a ghostwriter or something. So collaboration is what makes something better.
Writing a book is a team sport. I just wrote that down.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Totally
because
agree.
you get the words out of you. That's the first rule of writing a book. I think the first, or not the first rule, but what you'll hear most often, professionals or seasoned authors will tell aspiring authors, is like, get the words out of your head and on paper. You
Right.
cannot edit a blank page.
Right.
So you have to first
That's exactly
get
right.
those words out on the page, and then the fun begins, right? And that's all. I think it's all fun. I've always loved the editing process. I've said to many an author, the first draft of anything, and this is a ghostwritten book as well, right? You go through this, even though your words are probably much cleaner than a new person, but that first version comes back from the editor looking like a crime scene. I'm always
It
like,
does.
listen, it's always going to come back looking like you didn't run it through spell check. You've never heard of Grammarly, right? I mean,
Right.
it really does come back, and it's shocking. And I finally just got used to it, because I'd be like, okay, I have spell checked this kid. I have read it 10 times. It is like perfection. The editor is going to send it back to me with a little A+ surrounded by like red pen with a gold star. Like, I didn't even need to do anything. This job is free. Good job, HC. Oh no. Crime scene.
And that's a
Every
good thing.
time.
Yes.
Because to me, the skills of crafting a book and figuring out what goes in a chapter and gathering the stories and doing the client side and crafting the draft of the book, that is a completely different skill set than high level editing, or I would say highly skilled editing. So for example, Honoree, the book that the client whose book that we have now is in the production stage, short book.
Yes.
When the edits on that came back, I looked through it, and and as well as I do, we worked
Sure.
really, really hard to produce as clean a draft of that as
We
possible.
do. Yeah.
But
We
yet
did.
the edits that came back on that, it was stuff that I would have never thought of. I mean, I could work as hard as I can, but an editor has a different skill set that they're
Yeah.
looking for things that I would never think to look for. And you look at
Yeah.
that and you go, oh, well, I would have never thought to phrase it that way, or I would have never thought to correct that grammar mistake because I didn't think it was
Right.
wrong,
Right.
So,
So many times someone used a word the other day and I was like, please define that word for me. And they did. And I was like, okay, that's the right word. But so many times, because I get the little email every day from dictionary.com. And there have been a number of times where I would have died on the hill of this word means that.
right.
And it did not mean that at all. So now if I don't know for sure what a word means, I am really hesitant to use it because I think some people use terms or words and they don't actually know what they mean.
Right.
I keep
Right.
the
Right?
dictionary and thesaurus open the whole time I'm writing.
Yeah, I'm always jumping in for also to try not to use to do repetition. Um, so when should someone think about hiring a ghostwriter, and what are the main reasons why someone would hire a ghostwriter?
I think if you're considering a book and you don't think that you want to write it yourself, or you have some anxiety around writing a book, or you don't have time, you and I work with a lot of people like that where they're very busy professionals.
Yep.
They don't have time to take hundreds of hours to try and figure out how to write a book. Why would you do that? If you're a successful
Right.
professional, you're not going to
Right.
take time to rebuild your car engine, probably, unless you're a mechanic.
Right.
You would take it somewhere to have that done, or just buy
Yeah.
a new car, I guess, would be the
Right.
simpler solution.
Right.
So why would you want to do that with your book? It's really no different.
Yeah.
I think whenever you're thinking about writing a book, that's a great time to consider using a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
Or if you have tried to write it and you're feeling frustrated and you don't know where
Yeah.
to go, that's a good time as well.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I mean, I think that, well, first of all, obviously I agree with you, especially in the case of like busy professionals. I think that a lot of times, you could tell me if this is way off center or if I'm off target here or not, Kent, but I think sometimes it's like the fear that they won't have like as much control over the project
Right.
as they
Right.
think they'll have if they do it themselves. And a lot of times people that are that successful, especially when something's got their name on the front of it, like a book, and the readers assume it is your words as the author, they're nervous about that. They'll have a hesitation about engaging a ghostwriter because I think there's this very false assumption that they don't have creative control over this project and that it isn't their words. Like, can you just briefly confirm that, like, hey, you're drafting this, but it goes to them and they're working with it
Right.
as well. They're just not responsible for generating 40,000+ words, by
Right.
themselves off the start, right? Like, am I correct?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I like to use the analogy from a different industry. Let's take the music industry, for example. And I'll just say Taylor Swift because everybody knows who Taylor Swift is. Okay, when you see a Taylor Swift album, does that mean that she wrote everything? Well, she's well known for writing all her own songs, so maybe that's not the best example. But anyway, she probably had some co-writers on there.
Collaborative writing for sure.
Did she do all the recording? Did she play all the instruments?
No.
Did she engineer and mix the project? Did she manufacture those CDs or that vinyl? Of course she didn't. When you see Taylor Swift on an album cover, that means it represents her as a brand, as a persona. She's singing. She probably didn't play. I mean, she can play guitar, but I doubt if she plays guitar on her own records. There are far better guitar players in Nashville and elsewhere. So for some reason, when it comes to a book, we have a completely different idea about what authorship means. Authorship does not necessarily mean you crafted every single sentence and word in the book as it is presented. That means it's your ideas, it's your framework, it's your stories.
Yep.
And the job of the ghostwriter is to come in and draw that out. I would argue that a ghostwriter is going to do a better job of helping you be you in the book than you can help you be on your own.
That's huge.
Because that's the job of the ghostwriter, is to draw out what makes you unique. What are your stories? What's the framework that you want to teach people? And I think when you work with a great collaborator like a co-author or a ghostwriter, they're going to help you be a better version of yourself than you could be on your own.
Yeah, I love that. Because we are already short on time. This is amazing how fast this has gone. Probably because I was too chatty in the beginning, so my
Rapid fire.
apologies.
We're having fun.
How much should a ghostwriter cost? What's the range of ghostwriters?
So it's just like anything else. Ghostwriting can range from the really, really inexpensive to the very, very expensive, depending on the caliber of ghostwriter that you want to work with, what you're asking them to do, the
Yeah.
complexity of the book, whether it's research oriented or not. However, that being said, I think a good base rule of thumb is $1 per word. That is that's a good baseline for what I would just call professional ghostwriting. And professional ghostwriting means they've got some books under their belt. They're going to be hopefully easy to work with. They know what they're doing. They know how to craft a book and how to tell stories, and they can work with whatever publishing arrangement you have.
Yep.
So let's say if you're writing a 50,000 word book, that's 50 grand for professional ghostwriting. That is a good baseline to work from. Now, there are writers who are obviously less expensive. There are writers who are far, far more expensive, just depending on the caliber of writer that you want. But I think that's a pretty good baseline to operate from.
Yeah, I think that's pretty right on. And when I talk about investing in a ghostwriter and other options, I always suggest that they look at how long it would take them to write the book themselves and what the cost is. What do you make per hour? So what is it costing you? Because you're either not earning money or you're not enjoying your life because you're trying to figure out the process of ghostwriting. It took me 4 hours to build a WordPress page yesterday that if my designer weren't on an unauthorized, unsanctioned, unappreciated vacation right now, it would have taken him 20 minutes to build it. I'm not bitter. I did learn how to put together a WordPress page. Now I'm feeling.
I have a therapist
happy.
on speed dial if you need one.
Yes, I'm still traumatized by it. I think Byron might be by proximity. But that's my first thing is like, I will always say, how long will it take you to make back the amount of money it's going to cost you to delegate this project to skilled professionals who will do it better than you could ever figure out how to do it on your own. I mean, I built the webpage. You all can see it on honoreecorder.com/author, but I didn't do it in the best, most amazing possible way in the shortest time. I did it in the way that I copied someone else doing it for me and screwing it up. That was the first bad move. But it would have been much less painless and been ready sooner if I had just let someone else do it. I'm still talking to people who haven't even started writing their book that are still saying, I still want to write a book with you. And I've been talking to them since 6 months before we started Beth's book. And here is Beth's book. Beth is already selling books and making money and engaging clients.
I've got it right here
they're
too.
Still going, I'm going to write a book with you someday. And I'm not throwing shade or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, you're also leaving money on the table every day your book isn't ready. If your book isn't done well, you're leaving money on the table. So when you're thinking about it, it's not a cost is what it's to go to dinner, right? When I go to dinner, I spend money and that money is gone. When you invest in a ghostwriter, you're investing in your business.
Yeah, and can I also throw one more thing in here?
Yeah, please.
There's a lot of benefits to collaboration, and sometimes, just like you said, you're gonna go for a long time. You're gonna spin your wheels, and sometimes you need a great collaborator to get things done. So, one of the books that I'm reading right now is the new novel Eruption by. These are two names that nobody ever thought they would see on the same book, by James Patterson and Michael Crichton. So his long story short, his widow came across an unfinished novel a number of years ago. She reached out to James Patterson. The book just came out a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And I thought that's pretty cool that here you have this unfinished thing, and now you have a really skilled writer able to take that ball and run with it and score a touchdown with it. And I think that's a good analogy for ghostwriting.
Yeah.
Let's help you score a touchdown with it.
Amen to that. Yes. 100%. Have you read Eruption?
I'm partway through it. I like it. I've never read a James Patterson novel before.
Did you? Oh, really?
No.
What just happened? I'm having a moment.
So I told my wife, I said, he's very different than Michael Crichton. Their styles are really different, but one very smart thing that James Patterson does is he has little bitty short chapters that just keep you turning the page.
Yeah. You can't
You keep going.
Turn it off. Can't turn it off. Did didn't he write the Toys R Us theme song? Wasn't he the jingle writer?
That I don't know. I've not heard that.
I think he was a copywriter before he was an author. So I think he
He
brought
was,
that
yeah.
into, yeah. So,
Wow,
Interesting.
I think that's in the opening of the Writers Inc. podcast. I think I might have heard that.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And so is there anything else? What I would love to know what's next for you. And is there anything else we need to know?
So what's next is I've got a few of my own book projects coming out over the next couple of years. So, and those and client books, of course, we've got a couple of those going and probably many more of those to come the next few years.
Definitely.
And of course, I've got my podcast, The Profitable Writer, and my membership community, The Profitable Writer, which both of you are in. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're
Enjoy
welcome.
having you there. So
Of course.
yeah, lots of cool things happening. Probably the most exciting thing I'm personally working on, that, or at least that is really different, is my dad's Vietnam memoir. So we just had a conversation. I had a marketing call with my dad, as odd as that sounds.
That's so fun.
So we were talking about what are some things that we could do to promote your book. So we decided to launch a few weeks before Memorial Day next year to take advantage of Memorial Day. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to be doing some bookstore signings with my dad
Oh,
and those kind of things, which is really cool.
amazing.
So lots of fun things.
Well, let us know how we can help. And maybe you can have your opening, one of your book launch events or signings at Lucas's.
Yes, and I Lucas, I want to talk to you more sometime about the bookstore thing. I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's going to be great. And so
Crazy thoughts.
I have two more questions. Where's the best place for people to go if they're watching this, whether they want The Profitable Writer, your books, or your ghostwriting? Where do we want them to go?
You can go to theprofitablewriter.com. That's everything related to Profitable Writer. And my website is kentsanders.net. The easiest way just to get in touch with me directly is just shoot me an email, kent@kentsanders.net. Remember email, that thing that we all used to do way back in the 90s?
Yeah.
Which we all still love, and it's so simple. I just love it.
Email is a miracle. And so then you were really instrumental. I want to bring it back around to author publishing services, just for the purposes of saying thank you, because you were the person who I was chatting with about some of my challenges and frustrations, and you connected me with MJ. So I want to say thank you for
my pleasure,
helping me to get that initiative off the ground, because I really think it's going to help a lot of authors to avoid painful pitfalls and problems and achieve successful and professional publishing with ease. So thank you so much for doing
pleasure.
that. Yeah.
Totally. And as I mentioned before, that solved a big problem for me, because when people have come to me who just want their books on Amazon or they want them published, I was struggling with what to do with that because I didn't have time to do it, but yet I wasn't sure where to send them. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. It's going to be just so great. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Lucas.
You're welcome.
I'm always thanking. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Kent, for sharing all of your knowledge with our audience. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And Lucas, what do you have to say? You've been so chatty this hour. I can't shut you up.
I'm just enjoying hanging out with Kent. I've just, it's always great to learn from you and be inspired by what you're doing. The whole concept of ghostwriting is so fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I just hope that this helps some people understand that, to your point, Honoree, I always say never write alone. This is one of the ways to do that in a way that if you're considering hiring like a book coach or a developmental editor, you might want to consider a ghostwriter, and at least have a conversation with someone like Kent before you move forward with making a decision about whether to use one or not, because a ghostwriter can be so phenomenally helpful. So I'm very excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate you both.
Yeah, brother. We'll have you back soon. We appreciate you taking the time to meet with everybody today. If you guys are new to the channel, go check out empirebuildersmasterclass.com. We have an author success bundle there for everyone to check out. Honoree has been gracious enough to allow us to bundle 3 of her all-time best-selling courses. They're the same courses that got me into her world and her orbit when I was learning how to self-publish. And I encourage you guys to go check out those resources, particularly if you're a nonfiction author. Honoree, am I forgetting anything on the way out?
I don't think so. I think we
right.
will be here next week.
That's it.
And then 2 weeks from now will be dark because we'll all be together for the Empire Builders
Sure.
Mastermind. So thank you
That's
all
right.
for tuning in. I do want to say thank you to my brother Justin, who always watches and edits our videos and does things for us. But he is not going to be watching live most Thursdays because he will be otherwise
Disposed.
occupied, indisposed. But I just appreciate his support and his presence in my life, as I appreciate you, Kent, and you, Lucas, and everyone who watches.
thank you.
And I want to shout out to Tony. Tony, put your book title in the chat and I'll add it. He just got his first copies of his first book the other day.
Oh.
And I didn't get my fingers on that in any way, but I'm just such a huge fan of Tony and all of his work and his story. He's so inspirational. So it's so awesome to see you here. And thank you all for tuning in. Please like, love, share, tell your friends, come back next time, ring the bell, all the things. And check out kentsanders.net and theprofitablewriter.com and get a copy or 10 of 18 Words to Live By. For 10 people, you'll love a whole lot.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
Appreciate it.